Alrighty, I found this channel on the YouTube called the Carvanacle, or however you pronounce it. The video I watched was, you guessed it, of Israel. So, the video is like 30 minutes long. I think I'm gonna boil it down, but let's get into it.
For today's video, I wanted to discuss why it's so hard to even find this information online and why you don't really hear about it. Like, why don't you hear in America and England that Israel is like literally one of the most poor developed countries in the entire world? Why do you never hear about that? Why do you never hear about all these issues in Israel? Why do you never ever hear Israelis talking bad about their own country? Because, of course...
Oh wow, Israelis don't want to talk bad about their country. Gee, I wonder why. I'm Canadian, born and bred. Do I talk bad about Canada? No, because Canada as a nation is great. It's the politicians that are a problem. This Carvanacle guy, he sounds like a UK. Is he going to talk bad about the UK? Is he going to talk about the grooming gangs? Probably not.
When you live in a country that is so poor, that has so many problems, you'd think that a lot of Israelis would actually vocalize like why their country is bad. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. I do think there is some sort of social media censorship coming out of Israel.
Gee, you think? That being said, I'm pretty sure there's social media censorship of the UK as well. But anyway.
I also think because they do so many terrible crimes to the surrounding nations, when you try and look for problems specifically in Israel, the search results usually bring up something in either the West Bank or Gaza, but also another part, and I have an article from someone who is a Zionist and an Israeli, and they talk about how Israelis are so reluctant to criticize their own country, even when objectively it is worse than many other comparable countries in terms of economic development. And also, part of this video I'm going to show you, someone said in the comments, and I didn't realize this, they said, one Israeli I've seen actually say loads of bad shit about Israel is Ethan Klein. So you wouldn't actually think that, considering what he's been doing over the last few years.
I'm not surprised. I've seen a few clips of Ethan Klein saying that he's against the war in Gaza or whatever because of the humanitarian crisis. So I don't see why this Carvanacle guy is surprised. I don't think Ethan Klein hates Israel itself. He's just against the war in Gaza, from my understanding anyway.
Few years, but I actually went and watched a lot of these videos. So they're basically like vlogs that Hila Klein made while they were both living in Israel. And in these videos, Ethan Klein is constantly complaining about what a shithole Tel Aviv is, and he's showing footage of this. And I want to show you...
I think I'm gonna skip these vlogs, because Ethan himself in the vlog says he doesn't hate Israel. He just misses being at home because he wants to make podcasts for people.
There was these socialist housing projects in the 1950s and 60s, but what eventually happened was they became privatized, and instead of these private developers making loads of new apartments for people to live in, which they did in some cases, what often happened is they owned the old socialist apartment blocks and just overcrowded them. So if you go in Tel Aviv, you're going to see these apartment complexes, which are extremely old. It actually reminds me of going to places like Hanoi, where you often see like these French-style apartment blocks from like the 1930s. And
so these socialist apartment blocks, maybe the reason they were privatized, maybe the government couldn't afford to keep them socialized, so they had to privatize them. And maybe the corporations that took them on saw that they were run down, and rather than fixing them up, they just left them as they are. Because, you know, Israel's not a really big country, and they have to spend a lot on their military. Why? Because they're surrounded by enemies.
And they've been adapted, but they're like so incredibly old. But that is obviously like a poorer developing country. That isn't Israel, and that isn't the Israel you've been sold in Western propaganda. So I want to talk about all of that today. I got a few more ones about Israel coming up. I got one about basically the Israeli tourism crisis. I might talk about internally people stopping going to Israel.
Oh gee, I wonder why people have stopped going to Israel for a vacation. I can't imagine why. So I guess this is a tourism ad or a LGBT ad, one of those ones. Yeah, they always make it look good in a tourism ad. They're not going to show off all the bombed out buildings It's just like if you had a tourist ad from, oh, I don't know, Kakistan, London. They're not going to show all the grooming gangs and such.
A lot of doctors have fled Israel, and Israel has seen its highest number of Israeli Jews leaving the country pretty much ever, due to a variety of factors. Obviously due to the war they started on Iran, and just general attacks from Hezbollah, Hamas and the Houthis in response to the Gaza genocide, right? So a lot of people have fled for those reasons, but also fighting multiple wars and doing terrible crimes against humanity. That costs a lot of money. And yes, Netanyahu has gutted things that generally benefit Israeli citizens to fund this.
Like your beloved socialized housing that you were talking about earlier? Yeah, go figure. Like I said, Israel's a small country. It's surrounded by enemies. They can't afford it. Even though they get billions of dollars from the US, they need every penny to up their military, right?
And Israel already had a high cost of living. And actually, funnily enough, after I uploaded this video, this came out, The Times of Israel. Israel has a higher cost of living than wealthier European nations, study shows. Soaring housing costs and steep food prices are the main drivers behind Israel's high cost of living, which has overtaken even some of the wealthiest countries in Europe.
Are you kidding me? You're literally comparing Israel to wealthy European countries? I got news for you. Israel is not a wealthy European country. It's not. So why are you comparing the two? That makes no sense to me at all. I mean, give Europe a few more decades and, it'll slip a bit more with all the immigration. But that's in a couple decades.
Dr. Saret Menahem Karmi, a senior researcher at the Aaron Institute for Economic Policy at Reichman University, told the Times of Israel, the cost of living in Israel is very expensive, and when you add the security situation and almost 3 years of war, it's not surprising we are starting to see the signs of immigration of quality human capital, meaning that more Israelis are leaving the country than are coming back. If nothing changes and affordability continues to decline, this is a catalyst for immigration.
Yeah? Why stay in a country that's being constantly bombarded for 3 years straight now, when you can just move and go somewhere else? Especially if you're a doctor, you can literally go to any European country or Canada or the US. Bing, bang, boom. That video I made a few days ago about that German guy that left Germany. Why did he leave Germany? Because it's not safe. Is Israel safe? Nope.
Lower, Greece, Cyprus, Italy and Spain, the cost of living in Israel as measured by the average consumption basket was found to be 68% more expensive. Comparison of the cost of living in developed countries by the OECD lists Israel as the 4th most expensive place to live, and the leader of the study again saying the issue of tackling the cost of living has been on the table of decision makers for more than a decade.
Gee, I wonder why the cost of living is so high. Could it be that they've been, fighting tooth and nail in numerous conflicts for its whole existence? Since the establishment of Israel in 1948, it has been involved in 9 to 10 recognized major wars. Wow. Along with numerous other conflicts and military operations. The primary recognized wars include 1948 War of Independence, 56 Sinai War, the 67 Six-Day War, 67 to 70 War of Attrition, the 73 Yom Kippur War, the 82 First Lebanon War, the 82 to 2000 South Lebanon conflict. Wow, that one went on for a while, 18 years. The Second Lebanon War, 2006, and the ongoing 23 Israel-Hamas War. In addition to these major wars, Israel has participated in 2 Palestinian intifadadas. The first intifada, 87 to 93, 6 years, and the second intifada, 2000 to 2005. So yeah, they've had numerous conflicts. So maybe that's why everything's so expensive. So yeah, this guy keeps talking about the cost of things going up, milk, dairy, etc., and how it's policymakers' fault. In a way, it is policymakers' fault because, they keep pissing off their neighbors. So I'm going to skip this stuff.
Where have you ever heard people talk about Israel like that? Also, it has a 50% population increase in the last 25 years, while only producing 10% more fruits and vegetables. So you're seeing how this apartheid state is just absolutely unsustainable. It cannot sustain itself. And the goal of many people in Israel is to try and get as many Jews as possible into this country to help with its ethnic supremacy and also just help generally with its greater goals on the region in terms of doing more imperialism. It needs more soldiers, it needs more people in the country. But what they obviously don't tell people in the propaganda when they're trying to attract all these people to come to Israel.
More people living in Israel means Israel needs more space. Interesting.
They show you the propaganda I showed you in the other video. They show you the nightlife. They show you the tourist scene. They show you the beaches. They don't tell you any of these things. That it is a 68% more expensive to live in Israel than Spain, but it's also one of the most poor developed countries in the entire world. So that isn't really a winning argument for people, and you can see why so many people are leaving Israel because they hate living there. But this is nothing new. But
do some people hate living there? Yeah, sure. But I would say it's more along the lines of Israel's been at war for 3 years straight. People don't feel safe. And like I listed before, all the other conflicts, all of that adds up. And yeah, cost of living. You could say the same thing about Europe. Why are so many native Europeans, like that German guy, leaving Europe? Because it's not safe, they're getting taxed into oblivion, and the cost of living's going up.
There's a video where he shows the street they used to live on while talking shit about it, but I just want to show you a few clips throughout these vlogs where he shows parts of Israel he hates, and he talks about how much he hates Israel.
I'm just thinking about how much I hate Israel and can't wait to live. It's like, if the country's so holy, why does everybody leave dog shit and garbage everywhere on the fucking ground? If this place is so fucking holy, why does everybody literally take a shit in the fucking street and I have to walk to it?
Okay, so I'm gonna X to doubt on people actually taking a crap in the street. I don't think Israel's that bad. I could be wrong. There are certain groups of people in Israel who might do that, but I think he's over-exaggerating. Now, people not picking up dog crap, yeah, that happens here where I'm at too. People can't be bothered. The whole someone else will do it.
I get the feeling sometimes it's cleaner in goddamn shit butt fuck cancer India than it is in this holy country. Today we are going to Akko, which is a beautiful little beach town up north. So you're gonna see that not all of Israel is shit. And by the way, I don't hate Israel. I'm just frustrated because I want to get home and make more H3 videos for you guys.
So yeah, he says he doesn't hate Israel. He might be sarcastic because now he's talking about a building.
By the way, isn't this a great place? Look how cool that looks. Isn't that nice on the nicest street in Israel?
I've been there once.
It's great, isn't it? That being said, I don't hate Israel. I don't think it's a shithole. I definitely like it a lot here. It's the same shitty street everywhere that you look. Everything looks the same. Welcome to Israel.
So Ethan Klein talks about a crappy street. Hey, you know what? I have a crappy street or two where I live at. There's a fast food restaurant on this street. There's homeless people all around it. Graffiti, everything. It got so bad when it came to crap, they literally put a porta potty with a sink so people would stop crapping everywhere.
But like I said, this just isn't an opinion you really hear from prominent people out of Israel that, yeah, they feel like it's dirty, people don't respect the place, and as he says in a few videos, it feels like he's in some sort of like Indian slum.
So this guy says, you won't hear prominent Israelis criticize Israel. Yeah? Ethan Klein's not a prominent Israeli. He's an American, allegedly. So he's an outsider looking in. It's kind of like me when I look into what's happening in Europe. When what's happening in Europe is nothing less than a white genocide. As far as Canada is concerned, I was born and bred in Canada. Am I a prominent Canadian? No, because prominent means another word for elite, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll tell you what's wrong with Canada. As a whole, the nation's fine. The problem is the politicians, like with every country.
We had like cockroaches, we had mice. There was like a whole family of mice in our apartment once. Looks like they cleaned it up a little bit.
And why do apartment buildings have mice and cockroaches? Because the people living there don't take steps to prevent them. Like, for example, if you live with somebody who leaves food all over the place, well, guess what you're gonna get? Where I live at, they do a yearly inspection. Do you know why? They want to make sure nothing's getting damaged and to make sure, there's no unauthorized critters.
These windows up here, all this natural sunlight. Look at this place now. Florentine. Anyway, Israel's a wonderful place, guys.
It is. Don't listen to it, man.
I'm not being sarcastic. I love coming to Israel, dude. This is an awesome place.
So that Florentine place in Israel, is that like some kind of ghetto with all the broken cars and stuff? Because I've heard of ghettos.
Look at that fucking wiring, dude. That's sick.
You
I
gotta
love
be
Israel.
a pro to do that.
Yeah, so Tel Aviv in these videos doesn't look like the paradise that I'm shown on TikTok and in Western propaganda. It looks like...
So yeah, the Israeli government, do they promote Israel in a good light? Yeah, any government would. The government of my small town would. They wouldn't show the homeless camps around the McDonald's. Of course not. And I can point out the hypocrisy. This guy is showing clips of Ethan Klein showing the very worst. So he's doing the exact same thing, just instead of showing the best, he's showing the worst.
Any developing country, and even the wiring stuff, like you'll see that everywhere in places like Vietnam and Thailand. He showed an apartment actually, which might be something I was talking about like these old socialist apartment blocks, which are now just stuffed with people. You see the graffiti absolutely everywhere, and people in my comments who had been to Israel, they were saying that like the litter is terrible as well. Like the litter is everywhere. It's just like a very dirty place generally. And as you can see, when we talked about in my last video, all the statistics that point to Israel being a poor country, you can see it right there. It looks like a poorer part of like Mediterranean Europe. And you can tell that someone like Ethan Klein, who grew up in California even, he thinks it's a dump. He's constantly calling it a shithole. He's unfavorably comparing it to places like India.
Unfavorably? How is that unfavorably? I would say it's accurate. Though India is probably worse. Because why are so many Indians leaving India? Gee, I wonder why. When you have people leaving an area, a country, that's generally an indicator that says something's wrong with that country. Why are Israelis leaving Israel? Because of the war that's been going on for 3 years. Why are people like that German guy, why are they leaving Germany? Because of all the crime. Gee, and where did all the crime come from, I wonder? This guy talks about these socialized housing and stuff and how the country's all falling apart. Yeah, that's socialism. Socialism is government pays for everything. Well, what happens when the government can't afford to pay for it? The stuff falls apart. And as for the privatization of these apartments, do the corporations have an incentive to improve them? Not really, because Israel's overcrowded. So people have to get what they can get, even if it's dilapidated. Where I'm at, old apartment buildings, they have to modernize, or else the new apartment buildings that are being put up will put them out of business. So this guy is basically just listing everything wrong with Israel. At least that's my understanding. A few of the other things that he mentions that it's a colonization project like the U.S. No, they're completely different. One, Israel is getting billions of dollars in aid from the U.S. government. My understanding with the U.S. and Canada, they were just settlers that were just plunked into the Americas and they were told to build settlements. Did they get support from the British? Hit or miss. My understanding, the first colonies in America, a lot of them failed. It wasn't until they started growing tobacco that they started to succeed. Canada, fur trade. That money was used to build bigger settlements. And when you call Israel a colonization project, is it really? I mean, Jerusalem is Jerusalem. The Romans even talk about how they sacked Jerusalem, you know, the Jewish capital. So, was it really colonization, just going back to the place you came from? Not really. He talks about how America and the Israelis subjugated people. Yeah, and you know who else did that? The Ottoman Empire.
And also, what can you expect when you have such a violent society? You have a society that is literally not just built on violence like America. And America is also a very violent country as well. Like, the majority of the population has military training. Loads of people have firearms as well. And they're constantly celebrating violence against Palestinians. Do you honestly think that's not going to translate to society at large, where they are just a more aggressive, violent society, even in their interactions with each other, which again just exposes the hollowness of Zionism? They can't even unite with each other. They're at each other's throats all the time.
This guy complains that America and Israel are very violent. You know who else is very violent? Lots of the people that European governments let into Europe. This guy talks about how they're at each other's throats. Well, you know who else is at each other's throats? Indians and Pakistanis. When India and Pakistan fought each other, you literally had Indians and Pakistanis fighting each other in the UK. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. Is Israel a capitalist state? No. It's socialist. Why? They literally get a welfare check from the US government. So they're socialist. Anywho, I'm going to link the full video in the description. If you want to watch the full video, you can. With that being said, take care out there in Clown World.